Blog Talk Radio.
Choices, decisions, frustrations, and pain. Knowing I'm going to forget her someday. While I still can, I'll challenge all my loved ones, every friend, to look inside their hearts and understand that I will love them. I will love them while I still can.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and founder of Alzheimer Speaks. I am so excited about today's show that I am just about ready to burst. And before I get into our guests and what they have to offer us today, which I think is going to be just life-changing on so many levels, I want to tell you what Alzheimer Speaks is about. Because we are always getting new listeners, and we encourage people to be collaborative and share our resources. That's what we're all about, raising voice and enriching lives and sharing the knowledge. So at our core, we just really believe that collaboration and working together, we can really win this battle against dementia. And we know through our multiple platforms that we've developed, the radio show, the blog, the resource website, the dementia chats, a webinar platform, and so many others that we are making a difference because I'm hearing from you. And this isn't about Alzheimer Speaks. This is about all of us around the world joining hands and truly making a difference at a grassroots level and grabbing attention, saying this can't continue. There are better ways, and learning from one another and being creative and not thinking that there is going to be a magic pill that's going to fix this. This disease affects us on a much broader scope than any other disease that we've run across, because this affects everybody, families, friends, and coworkers. And so we need to help people today in the trenches. And again, I would love to see a cure for this disease, but in the meantime, we have to work together to make a difference. And there's lots of organizations out there who feel the same. Us Against Alzheimer's, Alzheimer's Disease International, so many, many others. And then small companies like myself and individuals, we can all make a difference if we join hands together. So with the show today, I'm going to be shocked if you don't just absolutely love it and want to run out and tell everybody about it. So what I'd really appreciate you doing is helping us raise awareness. And you can do that by liking us on the homepage of the radio show. You can tweet it if you have a Twitter account. You can email it to a friend. You can download the podcast if you want and embed it in your site and share this information. This is what it's all about, again, working together. So today, the way, and every show, the way our platform works is if you are listening by your computer, you can, if you signed in via Facebook, you can communicate with me via the chat box, and I'll try to field your questions and your comments, or you can always call in live to the show. We love it when our guests call in live with a comment or a question. And that number is 714-364-4757. That's 714-364-4757. And our channel expert, Rick Phelps, had contacted me earlier today, and he was going to be listening, so he's probably not going to make the show live. But we have lots of people who have dementia as well who will be listening. And, again, we love to hear everybody's voice, care partners, both family and professional. So with no further ado here, let's get rocking and rolling in this show because, again, we have some really exciting news that I think is going to be very helpful to so many who are dealing with dementia, and this is also a tool that can be used not just with dementia, which even makes it even more exciting. So my first guest is Barbara Brock, and Barbara owned and operated a children's art studio for 17 years. Her interest turned to the elderly when she realized the process by which children learn and the manner in which people with dementia seem to forget are related. Her dedication to improving the lives of those with living with dementia led her to develop 2 dementia-specific person-centered care tools. One is the standard assessment called the Reality Comprehension Clock Test, and the other is a social model known as Dementia Population's Gift of Purpose. Now, I have actually had the opportunity to just go through the training for the Reality Comprehension Clock Test, not because I foresee myself, administering these tests, though I could now, but I wanted to know kind of the guts of the assessment and how it worked. And I have to tell you, I have never seen anything like this. It is extremely comprehensive, and the knowledge base that we can get from a picture when it's assessed through this research data is absolutely incredible, and it will be able to change lives. So, Barbara, how are you doing today? I'm just so thrilled to have you with us.
I'm doing fine, Lori. Thanks for having me.
Well, I just, like I said, I am just bursting at the seams after going through your training. And when I get excited, I get excited. I can't hide it. That's just who I am. And I have been telling so many companies and organizations about this assessment. And so, why don't you tell us a little background as to, how this came to be? How did you come up with this Reality Comprehension Clock Test, and why did you think it was important to develop in the first place? And then we'll get into what it is.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity. Actually, like you mentioned, I had a art studio for children, and in my community in Toledo, Ohio, they had built a 100% dedicated Alzheimer's facility, and so I kept thinking that, wow, those individuals would enjoy drawing pictures. And, not any healthcare background at that point, but long story short, I ended up conducting an art class there, and then I was looking at how they would draw different things, and I thought there has to be some kind of way that we could have, just a one focus on one drawing that would give us some more information. Didn't know anything about other clock drawing tests out there, and so just created a picture of a clock, and we started using that on residents and patients that were coming into the Alzheimer's long-term care facility. And there was a student there, a master's student working on her doctorate, and she said, you know what, my professor would like to talk with you because we were looking at, wow, they crowded all the numbers to the right when they drew their clock. And when I would look it up in the research and look up the symptoms and try to make that match, we found out, I would ask her, did this person have a little stroke? And sure enough, when we would go to look, they had a stroke. And on and on and on to where now what Lori experienced yesterday in the class was that it tells us when they have an infection. We can find out if they're functionally incontinent. But the most important part when we standardized it, and I finally met with her professor, it took us 4 years to do that. It's standardized out of the University of Toledo. Its inter-rater reliability for all of you researchers out there is 96 to 99%. And then across the country, a good assessment comes in at 40%, and this one come in at 86. So very easy, family-friendly to understand, and it's the only cognitive assessment in the Alzheimer's Greenfield Library as far as clock drawings. There's lots of clock drawing tests out there, and it kind of gets, clumped into that, I learned about a clock drawing test, and a lot of, healthcare facility or healthcare professionals will roll their eyes. And like Lori said, no, we need to really impress on everyone why this one is different. So it was created. Lots of healthcare professionals know about the Folstein Mini Mental that we have used for years, but with the exception of drawing the hexagons, it's really language-based, and now the Centers for Medicaid Services has the MDS 3.0, and inside that document they have what they call the BIMS, the Brief Interview for Mental Status. Now, with that said, Lori said, why did you see a need to develop this? Because in those initial drawing classes and art classes with this population of memory-impaired people, I found out they had a lot of brain power left that we could tap into. And so the RCCT was designed to pick up where those language-based assessments leave off, and still today. And so in our training, the most important thing we have to learn is that dementia affects language and memory, but it affects it on different levels at different times. So just because a patient sounds okay doesn't necessarily mean they think okay. And just because a patient doesn't speak because their language skills have been affected so by the dementia doesn't mean they don't have the power to think. And, we were very, very excited about it.
Well, it is so exciting, and it makes so much sense, and it's cost effective, and it helps not only with staff interaction but families, and it can reduce liabilities, and I would think staffing costs, because you're going to be able to get rid of some behaviors and unwanted reactions, and be able to address being able, to figure out these issues. So I was just so incredibly impressed at how this works, and it made me laugh because I like I shared with Barbara, and I'll share with the audience, I am part of the Minnesota Memory Project here in Minnesota, where I go in once a year and I get tested. And, and I do the things, and there's different pieces to it, but I never really thought how deep they were looking at what it was I was doing. And it's making me look much more serious at things. And so, and I don't even think we do the clock test on it, but when, if that would have been part of it, I would have zipped a clock on there, and I wouldn't have thought twice I would have never, ever thought they could get the information out of a drawing as to where I'm at with something and how I'm doing it. Because, I probably wasn't as anal or as focused as I probably should have been with it. So it's making me, look at it very, very differently. And I think this test, which is so fabulous, where hospitals could be using this in clinics, because it's not just dementia specific. It could help with sports injuries that we're seeing, and so many other things of people at all ages that keep coming in to be more and more of an issue over time. One of the impact slides that Barbara has in her training program, which I thought was really powerful, was we had gone through an assessment, and we knew a level that somebody was truly functioning at, and there they were sitting in a car. And the question was, should they be driving? And it became so clear, even though this person still had good language and social skills, that mask a lot of times what the cognitive abilities are. We get wrapped up in that, well, they can carry on a conversation. And I think that is really frustrating, and I hear that all the time from people that have dementia. People say, well, I look okay, I sound okay, and this really is able to pinpoint and show people why, things aren't clicking in other areas. Let's get into the assessment itself a little bit more. Can you talk about the breakdown and kind of define for us this functional age and potential memory deficits and so forth when it comes to the test itself, the assessment?
Okay, thanks, Lori. I think when you're talking about the clock test in general, I want to start there and clarify why this is different, because I would be sitting there as a listener going, yeah, I've heard about clock drawing tests. What makes this the gold standard of clock drawing tests is that, number one, it comes in a little pink copyrighted test booklet, and on the back page there is an example drawing of a clock. And then there's a blank page underneath, and the individual is asked to replicate and put their rendition of the clock on the blank page to the best of their ability. The second part that really is why Lori's excited, because it gives us all this data that then leads to appropriate care and interventions, is that it has a valid and reliable scoring method inside of it. And that's what she learned to do on the first day of our training. And then to address what you're saying, well, all right, you want my aunt, by the way, is in 5th stage dementia, so I'll refer to her a little. Been working in this in the field of aging for a long, long time, and up to this point haven't had, a family member who's experiencing dementia. But, when they give the results, I'll back up, when someone's saying, well, I think, Barbara, you should have your aunt be tested on the Reality Comprehension Clock Test. And I go, why? What is it going to tell me? And so that's what Lori is asking, is that the data that comes out of it is the first thing. I'm trying to change the dialogue out there that when you get a new patient, family physicians, facilities, hospitals, even new clients at daycare, I think you should put it at the top of your list to ask, what's their cognitive factor? And that's made up of 3 things. That's made up of their functional age. I call that remaining brain power. How much brain power do they have left as a result of this dementia to process what we're all trying to say to them, or to get them to understand? And the next is the stage of dementia. It will pinpoint it precisely as to what stage they're in. And the third is the falls risk. We all know that elderly people, yes, are at risk of a fall, but this will throw up the second red flag that says they are in a serious or severe situation for a fall. So I want to go back and talk about these 3 things in the cognitive factor. And I stood up in front of many, audiences. I'm a national and state speaker as well, and always say, how can you take care of my aunt? How can you make a care plan if you don't know how her brain's working? And if you know that she has memory problems, why isn't that the number one question you ask? How much does she understand of what I'm saying? And we have it wrong. We do an excellent job of looking at their physical condition, and of course it's always, years ago, and it still is prominent, that we look at the physical issues. We're not looking at the cognitive piece. And now when patients come in to those different types of facilities, especially in the hospital, we're trying to have a big impact on diminishing readmissions in the hospital as to, first let's find out how much brain power she has left. Because the problem with readmissions is that, like Lori said, they sound okay and my aunt was recently in the hospital, she could answer yes, no, okay. And then every once in a while the dementia would kick in and she'd go, and what time can I go home? You could just see this 7 years of processing ability kicking in. And they were giving her long names of medications and schedules and what she should do because they're in a hurry to discharge her. And, not once. They might have asked, do you understand? And her answer is yes. And went home and actually experienced the readmission. 10 days later, she went back because she wasn't following the medication schedule. Hello? When we did the RCCT, she had 7 years of brain power. That's all the brain power she had left. And then the second thing is the stage of dementia. And when they tell me, Barbara, your aunt has stage 5 dementia, our question would be, well, what's going to happen to her? And so we go through, and our test is in coordination with Dr. Barry Reesberg's global deterioration scale. And we go through that with the family member. If that's pertinent at our staff, we go through and identify how many of those things my aunt has experienced. So we're really able to educate and bring all of this information together so we're all on the same page at the same time. And then we look at potential memory deficits. Why did they draw their clock that way? Why did they crowd all the numbers to the right? And that was what Lori experienced yesterday when we looked at various drawings. We looked at one with tunnel vision. And, if they had tunnel vision, they certainly weren't, their peripheral vision was coming in, and they certainly now weren't seeing things out to the right and left of them. So when people come up, it startled them. But I maintain that as healthcare professionals, I believe in this, and this is such an awesome, powerful tool that you really can't even begin to want to make a care plan or take this person into your care if you don't see how they draw and then have that go through this RCCT so you come out with that data to make appropriate care plans. And Lori said the impact slide of the grandpa sitting in the car behind the wheel and then looking at his picture, which happened to be his drawing was the one of all the numbers to the right, which is left side neglect. It's from a stroke or a small TIA. So he has a left side field neglect when he's driving and doesn't see anything on the left side. And these people turn left into oncoming traffic. Also, you can apply that if you look at the face of the clock where those numbers are all to the right, and you can see where he didn't draw any on the left. If that's his plate of food, he doesn't eat any of the food on that neglected side. And there's a simple intervention. You just simply turn the plate. But with that said, if you don't have a cognitive, I call it a cognitive read, if you don't have them draw this test for you and get the score, you have no way of knowing that.
Yeah, it's incredible how this can be utilized. And, again, it's low cost. The training is not that time consuming. I spent 4 hours. There's still another portion that we'll talk about that I haven't taken for the social piece that they have, but extremely cost effective and simple to do. And your training is really quite good. I mean, and I'm a trainer, so I assess things pretty tough. And, I mean, you really have designed it very well, easy to understand and apply. And if somebody forgets something, there's simple resources to be able to go back and refresh. But how this could help for intake for hospitals, how it could help for admissions to communities and assessing, moves within. Should somebody be living alone? Should somebody be driving? Are they capable of taking their pills? Do they have an infection? I mean, it is absolutely amazing, and it's not an overwhelmingly heavy academic stance where it could get confusing and there's big words and it seems really complicated. You have really done a nice job of breaking this down to speak the people's language so the professionals and the families and the friends can all understand what's going on. And the beauty of this is, which is, part of my mission with Alzheimer's Speaks, is to get people talking the same language so that we can communicate, so that we are all on the same page and we're able to see where we've been and where we're going. To administer this on an annual basis or a quarterly basis or when there's an issue, and to have that resource on your staff or in your community is really pretty cool to be able to do. I just even think with emergency staff or with EMTs and stuff, sometimes they get called out, or the fire departments get called out on things too that may or may not be a true emergency, but can run into this issue. If there was a reference point, it could help guide them, because the families would better be able to explain where things are at and have a copy of it. So it's just very, very exciting. Can you share with us a little bit about how do I want to say, some of the impact or maybe some of the stories that you've heard from people who are administering the test, and then maybe also from those, family members, kind of responses that you're getting to the test?
Well, we have a tremendous response from healthcare professionals that we train. We also offer a free support counseling consulting service. They can take the individual's name off the test and fax it over to us, and then we will help them. We're always there to help them look at these potential deficits and help them with any scoring. But, there are many, many families who this test really helps them answer some very difficult questions, and I don't think a lot of them certainly intentionally are in denial, but as this slow disease process comes by or comes upon them, families get used to doing things for their loved one. And so the question is, well, how much does my mom really understand? And then how capable is she of caring for herself? And lots of families hadn't thought that she might be unsafe or, in some danger at home. And then the last thing is, that I was talking with before is how do they understand the instructions they're giving when they're leaving the hospital, and the horrible experience that my aunt went through in going back to the hospital was just what Lori was saying. And you're right, Lori. It's about people coming into the ER and not being aware. We had a slide in our impact slide that the gentleman's clock drawing was 3 circles on the piece of paper, and he put numbers all over. And then here was a picture of a young doctor talking with the patient. And Dr. Riesberg's research, he wrote an article one time about, and stated in that article about their language becoming limited down to where they're only using 10 or 12 words. And that was kind of, this guy, the doctor would be telling him, yes, okay, fine. And so they're really not understanding that. And that one has quite an impact, because if that family physician had, been able to see this test, exactly what they drew, and then there would be some scores and data and information. We have what we call the RCCT cognitive reporting form that our students are trained to use. Staple that to a copy of the clock drawing, and that's the piece that, you know, we're really pushing out there to educate staffs at hospitals, family physicians, and even share with families. But it red flags the cognitive areas for the hospital right on that form. And so then this doctor could see that. And, you know, you're looking at that impact slide, and this young doctor who likes elderly people, he's decided that's the, the segment of the population that he wants to work with, but doesn't have any idea how the gentleman's brain is working. And, you know, I think I'm just passionate about, you can't take care of them until you know how their brain is working. We've been missing this vital piece. You have to start with that if you're going to take care of memory-impaired patients.
Very true. Very true. It's incredible stuff. Like I said, I get excited over things when I see them, but I'm really excited about this because I just see the multiple levels that this could be used and how this could change the way we give care and the way that people understand how to give care. And it really takes the burden off the family of trying to figure out what's going on or why, and really, states it in a very, I think, compassionate fashion in terms of, you know, this is the process of the disease, and then you also outline, okay, these are the things that have been lost, but these are the things that are still there. So how do we work with these things? How do we make quality of life better?
Right, and now, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I thought that you were asking about the dementia population's gift of purpose. And the RCCT has its own intervention, and that's what Lori's alluding to. It triggers right off from the assessment from the RCCT to our brain exercises. It's actually a curriculum of brain exercises that is designed according to the results of their RCCT score. It will say there's 3 areas of difficulty, high, medium, and low task, and it will say that my aunt, if her score is 43, she's capable of doing the second level of brain exercises because those 3 levels are designed to meet them right where they're at in the stage of dementia that they're experiencing. We have a big problem across the country with our activities because years ago, activity professionals were hired to entertain them. And that has totally changed because the population of people that we're caring for has changed. We really need brain exercises that they can understand and that they can be successful in. And it really is aimed at diminishing the behaviors, the anxiety, the frustration, the anger that the patients go through. And you can see that those programs come with their own evaluation, so you can monitor how my aunt's doing. And our corporations and facilities that are using it, we've changed the dialogue up to say we're going to recommend that you enroll your aunt in our brain exercises with Lori. She's the person who's completed the training. She's the expert. And then we're going to monitor her participation. And that will trigger back to, oh, my gosh, she drew the flowers upside down and all over the page. That would then immediately trigger us to look at what might be going on and do another RCCT and go back and find out. Maybe it's just the dementia has taken hold and it's taking us down another step, or maybe it will show you when she has a UTI. It will show you when she has an infection. And, those can really affect our cognition. And this test is so sensitive that a lot of times it will pick that infection up, before we have. Now, yes, we have a lot of savvy healthcare professionals and nurses out there who can read, their residents or their patients' body language, or they do, something specific, and they'll go, she acts that way when she gets a UTI. But it would show you when there's sugar spikes. We can look at it, and Lori was saying it really leads to a lot of care. For those still caring for their loved one at home, like the sample of where the left side neglect was and all the numbers crowded to the right, if you lay their clothing out across the bed, and every morning we have this argument about mom putting on her slacks, it's because if you have it across the bed and that's in her left side field neglect, she doesn't see those slacks. She's not trying to be mean or stubborn or argumentative, but it really does, like Lori said, bring help to families and caregivers, and that's, across the board. Facilities and hospitals, I know we train occupational therapists. We train all therapists, but I visited a hospital a few weeks ago where we trained one of the gals in OT, and it looks at, it will also show you progressive supranuclear palsy, which is where they draw it way up high in the page, but the palsy's in their eyes, so they don't see anything below. And that was the sample this recent student had brought for me to look at when I visited the hospital, and she said, oh my gosh, no wonder we can't get her to do this and do that. She can't see it. So that's the power of it. And just one more thing, Lori, as you've seen yesterday, it is very family-friendly. It is very easy to look and understand what the certified RCCT test administrator is telling you.
Yep. Yeah, it really is, and it's just it still amazes me the knowledge out of the drawing and how to look at things and interpret. Even with my dad had brain cancer, and all of a sudden he couldn't write very well anymore. I would have loved to have been able to give him this test and to see how he did, and the formation of things and the placement of things is so critical to what's going on in the physical body. And we don't really realize that. Anything from depth perceptions to strokes to tunnel visions to incontinence. Now that's another area that this test can really help with. And can you give an example of how that can help people deal with incontinence and how that works via the test?
Sure. Well, we standardized the research for the RCCT and proved that it was able to identify functional incontinence, which is dementia and incontinence. It's a big problem. And it come in with the statistical numbers of when that patient is no longer able to understand and comprehend the 2-hour bladder programs that we're trying to put them in. And we had a sample in the training Lori took of a gentleman who had excellent language skills, but his clock drawing was kind of all over the place. And, of course, looking at him physically and basing it on how he sounds, not how he processes and thinks, they put him on a 2-hour bladder program. He was combative. He didn't understand when the aides would come and try to gently guide him into the bathroom and get him on the toilet. And so it would escalate. And, of course, we do everything possible to try to diminish that combativeness. And then the end result, when nothing else works, we bring on, some drugs. And we were missing the mark totally because this will identify the most you can get on the test is 67. When you get to a score of 15, which is very, very low cognitive brain power now, it says he is not able to understand he's not a good candidate. And I think vice versa. We have lots of people who would score higher that we probably have in cognitive or continence products that we wouldn't need to do, and that's expensive as well. Cognition is a very, very delicate thing, and so Lori, took the time to get online. We teach this 4-hour class in 2 segments, 2 hours on a Wednesday and 2 hours on a Thursday. And I'm, thankful for the technology that you can get it from the people who created it, standardized it, and are experts at using it and teaching you.
Yeah, it's, I was amazed just at the little things that were said during this whole training thing that is so standard where, okay, someone's incontinent, so they're on the 2-hour program. And it was very blatant. They can't be on the 2-hour program. That's not gonna work anymore for them. Or they can't. If it's a family member at home, they can't take their pills, and this is why. And then these are other ways to be able to work around, what it is that we just, kind of go down that checklist of, okay, let's try this, let's try that, and it's much more of a crapshoot than it needs to be when this test is utilized. And that's the beauty of it, because how frustrated do we all get doing the crapshoot, And it's nice that we have all these tools and these ideas, but if we could cut to the chase and make the quality of life better for the person living with dementia as well as those that are caring for them, I mean, what's more beautiful than that? True. It's just, can you talk a little bit about, you touched on this, but describe in a little bit more depth the brain power and the functioning age and how that works, because we had some discussions even in the training session, about that.
We did. Well, like I said in the beginning, when you asked why we developed it, once you've administered the full steam mini-mental or the BIMS, the brief interview for mental status that's in the MDS-3 from Centers of Medicaid Services, where else is there to go? We're not, we're kind of just left there. And again, it's all language-based. They have other tests out there as well. Probably people have heard of the slums. It's language-based, but this test is cognitive-based. They do not have to have language skills. In fact, we have a piece published by the statistical professor who helped us with the RCCT. He went on to publish a piece, that you can do it with even different groups, different language groups. And so when you look at what the power of this is, it's looking at the functional age. And it will tell you that in years and months. And I think functional age to families sounds clinical, so I always use, we're going to give your aunt this test, Barbara, and it's going to tell us how much brain power she has left as a result of her dementia. And but the test screens up to 8 years and 7 months, simply because in our research, and we included in that research a group of children as well as elderly and elderly with dementia and so on. It's in our manual. But children 8 months old, and, on up 9, 10, 11, 14, 20, could all draw it perfectly. So there was no reason to test children further. And it screens down, if you get a score of 1, to 4 years, 7 months, because children at below that, 4 years, 6 months, 3 years old, 2 years old, couldn't put anything on the page that we could score. So no reason to go any lower. So if my aunt's test score, RCCT test score, is 43 in our manual, and Lori used it, there's actually a table. You don't have to do the lengthy calculation that is down in the corner that shows you how you can get there for all of you who like math. But you look up 43, and it tells you precisely how many years and months or tenth of a year brain power she's working on. And the same way with the global deterioration stage. It will do it to the 10th. It will tell us if my aunt's score is 43, that she's in the 4th stage and she's 7/10 of the way through that. That's how precise it is. And then once we have all the standardized data finished, all the scoring finished, then we look and teach our students to look for why did they draw it that way, because that's a great big part of the care plan now that we're going to prepare. And in their care plan, we are going to have a cognitive part along with the physical part. And obviously, makes sense that we would start with the cognitive part, like turning the plate. We would need to get dietary involved. That would be a part of their care plan, is to turn the plate. Make sure you don't put the liquid up in the neglected field. Otherwise, she won't stay hydrated. We need to move that. When therapists are setting up things to work with their clients and their patients, if they have that picture and that RCCT cognitive reporting form, they know how to customize their therapy. We're missing a lot of individuals with dementia who could really benefit from therapy if we had these cognitive results.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. It's it's such a nice option and tool to be able to utilize that, again, isn't complicated, isn't costly, and has multiple use and multiple benefits with it. That it's extraordinary. I mean, it's not near the cost of a PET scan. No one has to really get out of their environment, to go be pushed through some equipment or dye shot into them or any of those types of things. It's just sitting down at a table, drawing a clock, and assessing it. And in what's the time frame? Like a half an hour?
Oh,
for the
sometimes, 15 to 20 minutes
mm-hmm.
it would take for them to draw. I just, made a little note as you were talking, Lori, because, our elderly population, obviously, that's the most of who now we're seeing at the hospitals. But we really, even if they're not doing this test or they don't show up with results that somebody's tested them with the RCCT when they get to the hospital, we really should administer it when they leave, when we're discharging them. It should be a part of that protocol and policies that we have at discharge. That way they would have picked up my aunt's cognitive ability that she didn't understand anything they just told her about her self-care and, her instructions of going home. So that's going to be powerful and huge to use when we're discharging them.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the, I think, biggest frustrations that families have.
Right.
It's like, what are they sending them home for? This isn't going to work, or, you're just going to have a much better care plan, no matter where they go.
Right, and it was pretty evident in the impact slide of one gentleman put all the numbers up in the left-hand side, and then he drew circles around all of them. And,
mm-hmm.
Here's this nurse trying to explain to him how to take his medication when he goes home. Or maybe she's explaining that to him in the doctor's office. My aunt with dementia quit taking her blood pressure medicine and ended up in the hospital. So we really, really have to have the cognitive information.
Yep, definitely do. Well, I want to throw it out to see if we have any people that are interested in calling in, because I would imagine there's people that have some questions, and I would love to be able to take those questions, or you can utilize the chat box as well. I know we have lots of listeners. In fact, somebody emailed me and said they couldn't get in, so I don't know if we've blown up the system or what today, but we have lots of people on the line, and I would love to hear from you, and Barbara would be more than glad to answer any question that you might have regarding the assessment. In the meantime, do you want to talk about the kind of the second piece, that social interaction piece that you've developed along with the assessment? And
sure. It's called the Dementia Population's Gift of Purpose. It has 6 brain-stimulating exercises, like I said, on 3 levels. And I had mentioned that it really needs to take the place of, what we're doing now. Even for those facilities who have dementia units, we'll probably all attest to the fact that we do have memory-impaired patients in the general population. And the old adage, nip it in the bud, all the research articles that you read on therapeutic activities will tell you the sooner that we can benefit and get them started and participate in those, the better. I like the monitoring system. I call it grade cards. Facilities can, recommend that they put their loved one in these programs and then give them this grade card, if you will, of how their mom's doing, because it wouldn't be long and I'd go, hey, Lori, how's my aunt doing in that? And, looking at it monitors and it looks at not only their participation, but sometimes the behaviors subtly and, slowly start to go away. And we kind of get used to it and go, but wait, look how it was a year before. And also, if we could, Lori, before we have to go, could we talk about how to get trained?
Sure. Please.
Right. Like I said, cognition is a delicate thing. And a lot of people have asked us, we've been at this since 1999, and the questions come up more than once. Well, can I train Lori, and then she'll train 100 of our staff? And, the 3rd or 4th training of that gets so watered down. And what I'm alluding to is that it's nice that you can turn on a computer and get on your workshop. It's very interactive. We only take 8 or 9 students at a time. We teach it every week. And you sit right in front of the computer and fill in the scoring method. The instructor says, all right, Lori, what's your scoring box be? And let's talk about this. And so you're in with also a mix of different kinds of healthcare professionals who are using it in their practice. Geriatric care managers. We have a big, long list. OT in private practice. We now have people who have taken the class administer it for attorneys to establish guardianship or something, problem that they have there. So it's very, very easy and simple. There's a registration on our website, or you can email me. My information is, I guess it's going to be up on your site as well, right, Lori?
Correct.
Right, okay. But it's clockRCCT@AOL.com, and, we can send you a registration or talk with you or answer questions. But like Lori has experienced, I love that it's broke up in 2 days. You can come to work if you're at a facility, get on at 1 o'clock and take your workshop. You're off at 3, go back to work. And all of that kind of sinks in. I was telling her last evening, and you kind of, subconsciously or consciously thinking of it and having some questions the next day. But the good part is that by it being broken up, I have a fresh brain the next morning with new answers and excitement like you hear in Lori's voice. And so we've been offering it online for 5 years, and I really like it. I thought I was going to miss the classroom, but this really gets all your questions answered, and the instructors do a wonderful job.
Yeah, they really do. And again, it's real easy for us to think that we can train the trainer, but it's so important because the details that come out during this and the description and the examples shown of and the tricks of how to interpret the different pieces of the drawing is critical, and that could easily be lost. Someone has asked a question. Harry's got one. What is the probability of getting the wrong data? Would the data change from day to day? Good question. And Harry is somebody living with dementia. He's got
Yes, well, he's exactly right. You know, we have good days and bad days, and I think what you want to do is try to, if you're seeing that, if one day it drastically changes, then maybe we could get in a pattern of doing it every Monday for a couple Mondays, 2 or 3 Mondays, until we really see that it's settling down and, you know, we don't have any physical issues. You could have them on a day, you know, when their blood pressure is high and, you know, something's being affected, because everything does affect our cognition. But for the most part, from the first one to the next one, if we don't have any of those issues, the data would be correct. And what you'll find out is when people use this, they'll call us back up and say, you know what, I did this other assessment and I did this one, and Barbara, when I look at how they're acting and the behaviors and the stage of dementia, it exactly predicted what is happening with this person. So thanks, Harry.
Great. Yeah, well, and we had talked about when we did the test, there was a few of us online, and we all interpret things just a hair different. But we were pretty darn close, and the margin for error was explained to us in terms of how to do this. And the other thing that was really wonderful was one of the trainers said, you know, I used to be kind of more sympathetic going, well, I know that's what she was trying to do, you know, and we can't interpret it like that because, you know, that doesn't work because it's really about the functioning level, not if someone's trying or not, and then we defeat the purpose. And what was explained was now we're putting them in a higher functioning level that they're going to be more frustrated with. And I think go ahead.
You were just explaining that you know, there's no points for effort or sympathy. You can't award those, and you did a good job of it, because if you let that get in your way, then to answer Harry's question, yes, that's wrong. So the training does an excellent job, because Lori learned. She's telling you what she learned and, you know, why it's important. It's a pretty straightforward yes or no, black and white test. They either put the number there or they didn't. And once they see the importance of that, don't you agree, Lori, then you see that I'm not going to let my heart get in the way. I'm going to grade this just the way it says.
Well, yeah, because it really is about the person, and you want to give them the best level of care, and you can't do that if you're not truly being objective, as objective as we all can be. The other thing was, you know, we had discussed about, because you're observing somebody, you know, there were questions of, well, if they did it this way, I would have graded it here, but if they did it this way, I would have graded it this way. You know, and so, I mean, there is some interpretation, but it was amazing how close we all were, because it's so well defined in terms of what it is, you know, you're looking for.
Yeah, because the inter-rater reliability, which means if we put 10 people online and teach them, what's our chances of us all coming up in this statistical range of 96 to 99%? And we all came 3 points one way or the other within the range. So, yeah, if you have the education, it's pretty sound. Yep,
definitely. Well, if you want to, we need to wrap up here. We only have a couple of minutes left, and then I need to pull in our second guest, who I'm really excited to have on today, too. Do you want to, again, tell people, Barbara, what the best way is to connect with you?
Sure. The email is clock, CLOCK, RCCT @AOL.com. Or I don't mind that you call the number at the office. It's 419-865-6131. I'll give that in just a minute. I'll give it again in case you didn't get it. I just wanted to make mention, because we talked a little bit about what my project is and where I'm also trying to get them to use this, and that is in sports. Because a clock drawing of an individual, of an athlete who's experienced a concussion, can be drawn along the sideline, and they can determine, number one, what his visual spatial skills are. Can he see where he is in the space that he's in? But number two, it will immediately give them data as to what the impact of that concussion was, so they can make a quick decision as to whether he should go back in the game. At this point, the protocol that they have across the country, and people are getting on from high schools and all the way up to, professional sports, is language-based. They make an observance, physically look at them, and then do a balance test. So just what we've learned in this brief, short time, what were they missing? They're missing how his brain is working. And, with our technology today, they could, when they're giving physicals for, say, soccer, all the children or all the sports figures could draw their test. We could put it in our iPad. We can bring up what they drew at the beginning of the season and even compare it with what he just drew sitting beside me on the sidelines. So if anybody's connected to sports, we really are looking for schools who are interested in using it and trying it and seeing if it's going to help keep our athletes safer. So thanks, Lori. Here's the information again to contact me.
Okay.
The phone number is 419-865-6131, or you can send it to the email clockrcct@aol.com. We also have a website, and that's where you can see some of these impact slides. I think the one that Lori mentioned is on there about the driving. It's clock test, and then you put the RCCT at the end, or if you just type in Reality Comprehension Clock Test in your browser, you would get it as well. But on the website, if you click on Power of the RCCT or Clock Drawing Examples, you'll see a lot of what Lori's describing. So I appreciate you having me.
Well, thank you for joining us, and I really hope your phone and your email just blows up with people wanting to get this information, because it is absolutely incredible, and I think it can change lives on all levels. I think it can make everybody much more person-centered and be more understanding of exactly what is going on with this disease. So, again, thank you so much for your time, and I'm sure we will stay in touch, Barbara, okay?
Oh, we will. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and God bless. Bye now.
Thanks. Bye-bye. I want to introduce our second guest, who I am just as thrilled to have as I was with Barbara. Camela Mulroe is the Director of Activities and Volunteers, and ever since she was young, she basically has been drawn to the wisdom and the charm of older individuals. And for her, working with seniors and activities has been her one moment in time where, that's all she wanted to be. And at 16, she had an incidental run-in with a nursing home activity calendar, and she says, the first words out of her mouth were, "I could do that." So, as they say, the rest is kind of history for her. Outside of raising 5 kids, St. Mary's Care Center has held her heart for the past 18 years. She has a liberal arts degree, graduate coursework in gerontology, and studies towards an MA in pastoral counseling. And her greatest interest is the spirit and soul of each and every one of her residents. Her favorite programs are the Whole Heart Worship Service. And she shares this with residents on memory care and encouraging life engagement through the SMCC Dreams program, which we're going to talk about. So welcome, Camela. How are you doing today?
Oh, very well, Lori. Thank you so much for having me on, and I appreciate your time.
Oh, well, I'm thrilled to have you. You're doing some great work. But before we get into, some of the things that you're doing at St. Mary's, can you give people a little bit of background? Have you personally been touched by a family member or friend with dementia? That's always just nice for our audience to know.
I didn't really have anyone with dementia, but I did have my grandmother, who was very, very close to me, and she went through a period where she had suffered a series of strokes and was unable to communicate, and basically was very much non-responsive verbally or even physically. And during that whole time, I used to wonder, well, where is my grandmother? And it was really hard because it wasn't the same person that I always knew, and I think that happens a lot with dementia. And at one point, I had a dream, and in this dream, she came to me, and she was still living at the time, so it was interesting. In the dream, I saw her in her bed as I was knowing her at the time, but then she was also standing right next to me, and we were looking in the mirror together. And I looked at her and I said, well, Grandma, how can this be? How can you be here and then still in your bed? And in the dream, she looked at me in the eyes and she said, you see what you see, but I am more than what you see. And ever since then, I have such a longing to reach in and touch that part of individuals who may not be able to communicate and who may not be the same person they once were. So that is my passion for reaching out to people with dementia.
Well, what a neat story that is. You know, I love that. That's very, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why don't I'm going to have you give a little background, too, so people know a little bit more about St. Mary's Care Center.
Sure.
If you want to go ahead and just give our audience kind of a brief description of what you have to offer there.
Okay. Well, we are a nonprofit skilled nursing facility and rehab center. We have a memory care unit, which is designated. We have 46 people on our memory care unit, and we have 184 residents in total. And our goal here is to help people to live the best life possible, and certainly that is the goal of most, if not all, long-term care facilities, as we are really looking at person-centered care. And as we look more into, people come and they live here, they don't just come necessarily for just a real short time. This is their lives, and in everybody's life, we have 525,600 minutes in a year. And if someone comes to live here for 2 years, that's over 1 million minutes. And we've even had residents who have been here 10 years, and that's 5,256,000 minutes of their lives that we're being entrusted with. And every minute has to count. So our key thing here is to look at how can we make those minutes count, and how can we make sure that their lives are still being lived. We're not a waiting room. We're not an end of the road. We are a part of their whole life. And so that is how we approach what we do here. Our mission is, through our exceptional healthcare services, we reveal the healing presence of God. And we're about making peak experiences for our residents.
Wonderful. Well, good. Well, let's kind of dive into what you do. We all know that we really need, or we all should know that we really need to look beyond the physical realities into the depths and kind of complexities of each individual before us. So how do you recognize, the spiritual needs of those that are no longer able to really express, their worship in words? How do you start?
Well, certainly having a personal history and a life story is a key component, especially we rely on family, etc. But beyond, once we have that type of knowledge, it really is in spending time with the individual. It's in seeing what the reaction is, and because spirit is more than religion or dogma. Spirit is that internal soul of each individual, and you really cannot get to know that unless you spend time with someone, unless you are willing to be quiet with them, to look deep into the reaction that you receive, and it happens over time, and it's relationship. You can never develop a good component of worship or that spirit really without the relationship. And when we do our whole heart worship that I do with them at 10 o'clock on Tuesday mornings, the benefit that I have when I reach out to these individuals is I already know them. I've spent time with them, and I am able to bring their life and their qualities into that worship, and that is really very important. So, for example, if we're talking about being thankful, I can help them in bringing up parts of their lives and saying, Irma, your wonderful family, or whatever it might be, and help bring that in. That's a real key part of reaching into. And I would really recommend Naomi Feil and her validation therapy. She really hits it on the head. There's a well-known YouTube video out there right now about Gladys Wilson. And if you watch that YouTube episode, you will see how she transforms Gladys Wilson from being so inward to being in one with and in sync spiritually with Naomi. And the two of them are together because Naomi uses some of her history by knowing that songs like Jesus Loves Me was real important to her. And then she works with spending that time with her, looking her in the eye, touching her, and then working with her own rhythm, with Gladys's rhythm, in order to bring Gladys home to who she is.
Yeah, that is one of the most beautiful videos and powerful videos of what she does in a few minutes' time. Is absolutely incredible how she just awakens and connects.
Yeah.
And the joy is just so pure. And again, like you said, it's about being able to be quiet and slow down and just connect. It doesn't need to be busy,
right.
But in our society we feel like it needs to be busy. Busy means we're doing something, and that isn't always an accurate picture.
Absolutely.
Now, when it comes to, how do I want to say this, sensory and emotional and spiritual memory, how do you optimize, a level of engagement with that? How do you reach residents on a memory care unit when they're unable to understand verbal cues?
Touch and music are really the key components. Music has a way for all of us to bring us back somewhere. We've all experienced it. We're walking somewhere and all of a sudden, or in the car, we hear a song, and it's from, let's say, your first crush in high school, and it's amazing how all of a sudden it's like you're there, and all those feelings come back. So music is really one of the key ways, and certain smells, like from the church. And when we're in working with, and for us, primarily our residents are from the Judeo-Christian background, and things like the smells of candles, the familiar songs and prayers are things that touch deep down inside, and it's really great So, for example, I'd like to end with the amen, amen, and it's really interesting because you will have people who might have been quiet for much of the service, and they will follow with those words. They will sing them. They will clap with it. It awakens something inside that brings them back to where they once were. And that is what is completely important. Even, and it's interesting when you see tears running down their face or their ability to listen to cues such as to open your hands or that kind of thing. And you look around and people are doing it. It makes you realize that everyone is connected and we're all there together, and it's just really important. But touch is really the key component, always.
Yeah, and like you said, all of those, pulling in all those other sensory modules, trigger things, and that's pretty incredible to see come into life. Do you use like incense at all? Because I know, I'm Lutheran, but I used to, when I was young, go to the neighbor, and they were Catholic, and they would have the incense. It used to drive me sinuses crazy. But do you use that as a trigger for people at all, or?
That, and even I find actually if you light a candle and then just blow it out, it leaves that lingering smell.
Oh, that's a good one. I never thought of that one.
Yep, and cause even here, if we do a service in our main chapel, when they blow out the candles, it leaves that smell, and it's the same smell that a lot of people are familiar with from church. It has that smell.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really good thing. What about in terms of touch? Like hymnals and things like that. Is that something that's used, or
songbooks and hymnals, and then also for people who used to wear head veils, the lace, that feeling of putting that on your head. So things of that nature also, and different just materials that feel like altar cloths, and again, it's such a personal thing that it needs to be really looked at with a life history, because what may create a sense of memory for me doesn't necessarily create a sense of memory for you. And so sometimes it's a trial and error too. And we cannot control everything. I think, you talked about that busy component. Like we think, it's working if they're busy. It's the same thing with that sensory memory component. We cannot control it. It's such a evasive type of thing. It doesn't mean we don't try for it, but we just don't ever know completely. And so as practitioners, we have to trust as well that what we're doing is making a difference on some level, and we don't not do it because we don't see results right away. Because in time, then we start to notice the subtle, she's happier. And we ask people, do they want to come to the service? And they will say yes or no. And it's important that we honor that as well. And it is very interesting because there was one resident who would say, is it time for the service of the angels? And for a while it was like, I wonder why he's saying angels. And then I realized it was because we had angels on top of the fireplace in that room. So even though we don't always know what people cue into, they're creating their own sense of how and why it's important to them. So it's really kind of interesting.
Yeah, very, very, very much so. Now, when it comes to dreams and wishes of, because we all have them. I don't care
right.
what age or stage we are. How do you deal with a person when they can't recognize their wish or dreams on an intellectual plane? How do you incorporate that dream, into a residence care plan? I know you've got a program for that called, Dreams Take Flight.
Yep, and we are in the process of, because in the Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, when all the real basic things are being met, and then they talk about self-actualization, and then he has added a new component called peak experiences. And I think that is important within those 525,600 minutes, that we bring about things that are still peak experiences. And so for dementia, they can't necessarily say, I want to go sailing or I want to do X, Y, and Z. So we pull in certainly advice from the family, etc., but we also have to listen to what residents are saying, what they're searching for. And often on a dementia unit, there's people searching for things, and if we take the time to listen to what they're searching for, instead of sometimes it's really easy to brush it off like, well, we don't have that, or that's not, or try to distract them. And we have a resident, her name was Marie, and for a long while she kept saying, let's go. And so I would say, well, where do you want to go, Marie? And she'd say, to the dance. And, of course, she would say it to me in this way, like, don't you know? I mean, catch up with the program type of thing. And so I was like, okay, and I put dance music on or whatever it was, thinking, but that wasn't enough for her. And she wanted to find a dress. She wanted her nails done. And then it was quite humorous because any eligible, or what she perceived as eligible man who might be around was, fair game to be date for this dance. And so I thought, well, gosh, she really wants to go to a dance. And when we were talking about our dream program, I thought, how can we get her to a dance with a date, dress her up, etc. And I didn't know if we had any real dance halls in the area that would fit her type of music. So I thought, what if we had a dance here? So we enlisted some of the UW Naval ROTC, and we enlisted Belly's Flowers, where they donated the roses, and we created a whole dance around Marie's dream. And it was really wonderful, and Marie got picked up by a naval officer, and he brought her a rose, and we have these beautiful pictures and of her dancing with her military officer, and it was really wonderful. And I don't think after that she was really asking to go to the dance anymore. So I like to think that for that evening she was Cinderella and her prince came to call. So that's how we heard her dream. And it really is listening, taking the time, like Naomi Feil talks about validation, being with them in that moment instead of trying to push it off or speak about reality. Mm-hmm. So that's how we really listen for dreams.
Oh, neat. That's neat. How often do you do dreams? I mean, do you have like one a month that you do, or just as they come up, or depends on the dream, or how does that work?
Depends on the dream and as they come up and as we get referrals. And we're currently working on, in general, helping residents to articulate or find their dreams, because a lot of them come from a generation where they didn't always think about that what they might call a pie in the sky type of thing. So we're training people actually how to dream a little bit more and be willing to say what they might want. But we do it as needed. A lot of our dreams, oddly enough, or maybe not so oddly enough, have focused a lot on food and, eating certain things. That's what people tend to request at this point. But we've had someone go sailing, and the main thing that we've been learning from our dreams is that, number one, pursuing dreams leads to life engagement. When you start to think that you can do something else, you become more engaged in life because things become possible. The other part is that these dreams become traditions. We are not a last wish type of thing. This is about engagement. So, for example, one of our first dreams was a woman went sailing, and they had a special lift, got her into the boat. So she went in 2011. She went again this last summer in 2012, and she's already planning to go in 2013. So it's about tradition. It's about helping people see that things are possible. So we're really working on, we have one resident now wants to go skiing, so we're looking into different areas where we might be able to have a special type of device where he can, go maybe on a small hill or something. And then we have another resident right now who wants to fly in a small plane. So we're currently looking for an airplane that he could go into and they can kind of lift him into. So if anyone knows of someone where we can take a resident who's in a wheelchair skiing, or where we can get someone up in a small airplane, that would be really great. So, but yeah, as they come up, we really work at trying to make them happen.
Well, that's neat. That's very neat. Now, how does one of the things that I want to talk about is when you do these dreams, how do you communicate that to staff and to family in terms of involvement? How is that? Is that shared?
Yep. And currently, certainly in our new employee orientation, we tell about them, and that I always tell them how to listen for the dreams, and that we really want that type of feedback. We talk about, and the gentleman for the skiing, that was talked about at his cheer conference, because the social workers know about it, the nurses. We've been talking a lot about it. So that's brought up at cheer conferences, perhaps, so that way families can put their input. Then we also, right now on Facebook, we have a Facebook page, St. Mary's Care Center, and we can list ideas on there, so we're communicating in that way. We have the Hospital Foundation has just helped us to raise money, and they raised a little over $20,000. So now we have that money in our dream fund, so that if things come up, we actually have some money that we can access. So that's how we communicate it, through our newsletter, etc.
Oh, great. And, if, like with this dance and stuff, is that something that families are invited to be able to, participate in? And
oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And especially, for example, when Marie had her dance, and the family came, and they were part of the whole process. And then we have, that also has turned into a tradition. So we had it the 1 year in 2011, and we just had it again in 2012, and we named it the Red Rose event. So, and now it will always be, unfortunately, Marie isn't with us anymore, but it will always be in honor and memory of her, because she wanted to go to the dance. So we're able to carry that out every year now.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, that's neat. Now, you also do a collaborative, effort, or you've got a collaboration idea with the University of Wisconsin in terms of creating change, and it was like a summer institute. Can you tell us, what the name of that is and what you were looking at there, what you did?
Sure. And actually, that was the UW Milwaukee.
Okay.
And Ann Basting is a big part of that. It's a training, and it's about collaboration, and it's about the arts. And I spent this past summer for 4 days, and there were people from all over. There was even few from China, Canada, and throughout the United States. And we were learning about how to create change in our organization through the arts. So that way, what you're doing is you're bringing in the families, the community, the residents, the staff together so that you create a unity and you create a sense of fun so that life becomes more than just the caregiving. It's about what is out there that brings a sense of self-fulfillment. Ann Basting worked with Luther Manor originally, and they worked also with the Sojourn Theater Company in order to create a play about Odysseus and Penelope. Mm-hmm. And their core thing was about waiting, and so they created this big production with the residents, and it brought a whole new aspect to their lives. And even residents on their memory care unit, that created such a imprint that they were able to want to be there. And an example they gave that still stays in my heart was a resident whose wife would come to all the rehearsals, and they were going to have to miss one because she thought he wasn't feeling well. And he never really said much. But on that day, when his wife was saying to him, well, perhaps we won't go today, he gave a very firm, affirmative, I want to go. And so for that family member to see that type of engagement when it wasn't always there was just really amazing. It was something that was heartfelt, and that's what we're working on right now here, creating our own play with a collaboration. Our play, in going with our theme of dreams, and to help residents come to grips with who they are and wanting to search for dreams, is our production that we're just starting, called Got Dreams. We're just in the audition and rehearsal phase, putting it all together. I met a woman there. Her name is Dr. Joan Cole. She's from Rockford, Illinois, and she's part of a theater group that she founded called H. Quake Theater, and she has her doctorate in theater and older adults. So she works primarily with older adults in the arts. So we're working with her. We're working with our Alzheimer's and Dementia Alliance of Wisconsin. And there are two of their members, Danielle Ty and Pat Wilson. And they're part of their education and family caregiver groups here in Madison, and they're going to be partnering with us to work with, including our memory care residents in the production and helping them to participate to the fullest capacity. So we've been working with them, and then Edgewood College, and we're working with their students to help us with the play as well as family and other volunteers. And we even have a few staff people who have auditioned and want to be a part of the play. So it's really fun. Yeah.
What a nice way to connect. and just on so many levels, from staff and families and community at colleges. That's just very, very neat. You'll have to keep me posted on that. Maybe I'll have to run over there and check out the show. So that would be.
Oh yeah, and that'll be in May. Actually, we already have our performance date set. We're gonna end our nursing home week with it. So that Friday, May 17th, Saturday, May 18th, and Sunday, May 19th, we're gonna have 2:00 performances, all 3 days, and it's gonna be a great way for us to collaborate, to reach out to the community. And it's about really helping everyone see that it's never too late to dream, and the wishes and parts of who we are, whether we can express them verbally or not, are key, and they're inherent in who we are. And they don't go away no matter how old we are. Sometimes we may suppress it and think that it's not there, but it is. And as a community, we need to see that. And we need to treat our elders in that same way, and look at how we can make life the very best possible up until the absolute very end. And that is really very important.
Oh,
certainly my passion.
Yeah, and I think that's just beautiful. That's what I love about my job, is getting to hear all these cool things that people are doing all over the world, and it ignites other people, and gives them ideas of how they can work and be collaborative and change the world, change our dementia care culture. We can really do that together. It's happening already on so many levels, and all of a sudden I'm losing my voice here.
Well, and as Hillary Clinton had said that it takes a village to raise a child, my mantra is it takes a community to build a life. We're not living in silos, and they need everyone to be a part of their life. And it opens their world when we have different people connected.
Yep, for sure. Just like it does the rest of us,
Sure, absolutely.
None of us are different. So, yeah, it's very, very important. Well, are there any other things that you wanted to share with our audience that you're doing over at St. Mary's Care Center in Wisconsin?
The dreams really takes up a lot of our time right now, and we're working on connecting more families together. You are working with a company called HD Connect, and he started a special, Skype is certainly very popular among people in communicating with families from far away, but with our Easy Connect TV system here, we connect a camera to the HD television, and it's really an easier way there's not a big computer component on our end. The family might work with their computer, but it allows residents to stay connected with family from far away. And so we're really excited. We just started this, and we're excited to see the expressions on people's face when they see the grandchild take their first step, or, see an old friend from years ago. So that's one thing that is very exciting about not just what we're doing, but the world in general. We don't have to be so far away. We can connect on a closer level through technology nowadays. So that's our other exciting project. But overall, we're just here to create peak experiences for our residents.
Okay, well, wonderful. How do people get a hold of you if they'd like to hear more about your initiatives? I'm assuming you'd be open to chatting and talk with others.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they can either call me. My phone number is 608-845-0582. You can like us on Facebook, St. Mary's Care Center. We're in Madison, Wisconsin. and they could email me, but that's a mouthful. You can just go ahead and look at our website, which is www.stmaryscarecenter.net. So those would be probably the best ways, and then they can email me through the website.
Okay, and if they're interested in going to the play May 17th, 18th, or 19th, could they get information from you on that, or is that something that'll be on the website?
That's posted on our Facebook page.
Okay.
And you can certainly call or look at our website.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. It was really interesting hearing all the fun and creative things that you're doing to engage and really reach in and have that depth of connection and that importance. I love hearing this kind of stuff. So thank you so much. And tell everybody in Wisconsin I say hi. And,
all right.
And I'm going to see if I can work that into my schedule. I've got some tour dates that they might be in conflict with, but I'll see.
Well, we would love to have you, and thank you for your time, and as always, really nice talking with you.
Okay. Have a great weekend. Thanks, Camela.
You too.
Bye-bye.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
So in wrapping up the show today, I just want you all to know that, again, I'm just so excited about all of the different initiatives that are taking place around the world and the difference that everyone is making by working together. It's so fun to see. And, I only wish that 30 years ago when I started on this journey with my mom that we were where we are today. And I know we're still not where we need to go, but we can get there. Together we will get there. So don't lose hope. There's a lot of neat things going on. And if you have some ideas that you're working on that you'd like to share with the world, get a hold of me. Shoot me an email. Maybe you'll be the next guest on the show. Again, it doesn't make any difference if you have dementia, if you're a family or a friend or a professional or a researcher or an advocate. It takes all of us working together on this. I also want to always mention Alzheimer's Disease International. If you are looking for resources in your area, Alzheimer's Disease International lists all of the Alzheimer's associations around the world. So you can go ahead and tap into them, and you can get to them on my website at alzheimerspeaks.com as well with that. And again, I'd like to remind people, if you enjoyed the show, if you felt it was valuable information, please share it on your Facebook. Please, like the show and tweet it, email it, download it. But, don't let it just stay stagnant. If it was important to you, others that it would probably be important to as well. And then this coming Tuesday on the 12th, we'll be doing the Dementia Chats again, which is a free webinar where I interview people with dementia. Those have been extremely powerful. We're getting great feedback from that, so I would love for you to join us on that show. I know Harry Urban will be with us on that particular show, as well as I believe Dina Dotson will be with us. I think Steve is not going to be able to make it, but we'll play it by ear. It's always a wonderful time with great information. Our next show will be on the 12th, and I'm going to have Ron Culberson, who is a humorist, and he's actually the president of the National Speakers Association on. And he is really going to talk about living successfully with dementia. And then on the 18th, we'll be having Dr. Bill Thomas with us with Changing Aging and the Eden Alternative. That'll be really a fun conversation. And then I'm also going to have somebody on talking about drumming. So we've got some wonderful shows scheduled and coming up. So I hope you stick with us. And, again, have a wonderful weekend. And thank you all so much for sharing this time with us today. Bye now.
Hi, this is Suzanne Newman, host of the Answers for Elders podcast and radio show. We are the North Star that guides you through the complicated journey of senior care with trusted experts in money, law, living solutions, and more. So join us on this station, your favorite podcast channel, or just go to AnswersForElders.com. Meet the Wayshowers who will help your journey go a lot easier.